A special look inside the first UK commercial clinic which offers to clone your pet after they've died. Gemini Genetics clones dogs, cats and horses using a small sample taken from a recently deceased animal. Laws in the UK prevent the creation of an embryo here. Instead, the samples are sent off to the United States. It does, though, come at a substantial cost, around £50,000 per cloned animal. But what do the owners themselves think of their new pet? And does it have the same personality? It's all a long way from Dolly the sheep, as our science correspondent Martin Stew reports.
The joy of spending time with your favourite four-legged friends, for many, is priceless. For Tom Rubathon, he knows exactly the cost.
I don't know, they're showing off for the camera, I think.
Myrtle and Mabel aren't just like his previous dog Daisy.
Metal.
They're genetically identical.
Look at me.
Clones created in a Korean lab for £40,000 each.
My wife thought I was crazy. I actually didn't tell her till they arrived. I had a nice Mercedes sports car and I had a classic Mercedes sports car, so I sold both of them to raise the money. So really, I sort of swapped having a nice car for having two dogs. The dogs win out every time.
Tom had to fly a scientist in from Seoul to take samples. Gemini Genetics is now offering that service in Shropshire.
Once your pet's passed away, you have 5 days within which you need to get the DNA preserved for cloning. So to clone an animal, all we need is a 6mm area of skin.
Once preserved, the samples are then frozen to minus 196 degrees. Customers then have a literal cooling off period before deciding whether to commit the full £40,000 to clone their pet. For legal reasons, that bit is done abroad. There, scientists take a donor egg cell, remove the nucleus which contains the DNA, and implant one of your pet's cells in its place. An electrical impulse triggers the cell to become an embryo, which is then implanted in a surrogate mother. She eventually gives birth to your pet's genetically identical twin. So your pet's personality and genetic makeup is all contained in those tiny cells?
Yes, so they have the exact same DNA to become the same as the original. But environment can influence every living being, whether that be plant, human or animal. So the extent of similarity, they will share many common characteristics. But for a full similarity, we need to provide a very similar environment. Jump! Come on, let's get it.
In the case of cloned Cocker Spaniel Gem, she's a little more sociable and into tennis balls than her working original. The cloning process was pioneered in Scotland. Dolly the sheep, the first, back in 1996. Pretty soon after, cloning was banned in the UK for fear it could spread into humans. But that wasn't the case in the USA, where Gem here was born. And there, the technology has been coming on in leaps and bounds. Particularly in the world of equestrian. Merker's Gem is a stud stallion. A dose of his sperm sells for £1,000. It's genetically identical to his originals, Olympic silver medal show jumper Gem Twist.
Arguably the greatest show jumper in the history of our sport.
And just last month, 2 identical clones of champion horse Chilly Morning finished with identical scores in dressage at the Eventing World Championship. Clones can now even compete at the Olympics. What would you say to people who are worried about the ethics of cloning and question whether you're just trying to cash in on people's grief?
I think that there are going to be people that have their own opinion on the technology. In the human sphere, so people use IVF to conceive a baby, and this is really just another form of IVF-assisted reproduction.
Gemini has already stored samples of thousands of cats, dogs and horses' DNA. So far, 200 have been sent to America for cloning. But post-Brexit, there is scope to legalise the process here, enabling more like Merker's Gem to be born, and potentially driving down the cost for customers like Tom, though he has no regrets on spending his life savings recreating the doggy love of his life.
If you have dogs, you love them, but when you get the special one, that's why you do it, I suppose. They don't replace the dog, but they're just the same sort of dog that you know you like, so you have the same relationship with them, really.
The RSPCA says time and money will be better spent rescuing pets already in need of a new home. Martin Stew, ITV News.